Hi, this is Deboki, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Turncoat by Donna Thorland. This book is the first in the Renegades of the Revolution series, which is a historical fiction series set during the Revolutionary War, following different romances between men and women on both sides of the war. While this book is centered around a romance, I don't necessarily think I would call it a romance novel, and I'm really only kind of quibbling about that categorization briefly here, so that for those of you who might be looking for a romance novel, that very familiar structure of a romance novel, this might not scratch that particular itch. The Turncoat is about a young Quaker woman named Kate Grey, whose home temporarily ends up housing several British soldiers, including Major Lord Peter Tremaine, who almost successfully seduces her up until a spy in the house steals the military correspondences that he has been carrying. These events both result in his disgrace and end up drawing Kate Grey into the war as a spy, which is a big deal because as a Quaker, she's supposed to be a pacifist, and also she's a woman. The two meet again in Philadelphia, which is complicated by many facts, including that Peter Tremaine thinks that Kate Grey was involved in the stealing of his dispatches and ultimately his disgrace, and even worse, the fact that Kate is now going by a new name and is engaged to his cousin. I have been getting increasingly obsessed with finding books about the American Revolution or set during that time, which is, yes, 1000% due to Hamilton, which I finally got to see a few weeks ago and I am still obnoxiously bragging about. But yes, I finally got to watch it a few weeks ago, and somehow that has now catalyzed an obsessive need to read everything I can set during the American Revolution. So I was asking some people for suggestions of romance novels set during the American Revolution, and Donna Thorland's Renegade of the Revolution series was recommended to me. And again, while I don't think it necessarily falls into the category of romance novels, it had what I was pretty much looking for, which is a central romantic plot set against the Revolutionary War. And this book definitely lets you know you're in the middle of the revolution. From the start, we learn more about the Quakers and their pacifist ideology. We then move on to Philadelphia, where the British General Howe is stationed with his troops. This is a story primarily about spies, and Philadelphia is a great setting for it because of the intermingling between loyalist Americans and the British soldiers that took place there, creating a lot of potential for intrigue. There are also plenty of famous faces in the book, including the Washingtons and, yes, Hamilton. And I was actually, when I wasn't reading this book, I've been also listening to the audiobook for Ron Chernow's biography of George Washington, and it was really interesting to kind of be simultaneously working through both of them, because a lot of the characters and settings and events that will show up in one will then show up in the other, and vice versa. One of the most compelling figures to me was John Andre, a British spy master who, in The Turncoat, takes on a very prominent and directly antagonistic role to the heroine. I sometimes feel a little weird or iffy about reading historical fiction that so clearly takes real people that have existed and have maybe even a mythical place in a country's history and mixes them with fictional protagonists. But I think Thorland was able to really go back and forth between real events that happen and the fictional tale that's at the heart of the story really well, which I think is helped by the fact that this book is about spies and espionage, which is inherently kind of an area that is supposed to be secondary to reality, that there's a layer of deception to it that allows you to kind of make up stuff that's happening. The espionage and intrigue also keeps this book moving really fast, and overall, I found this to be one of those reads where I'm sort of obsessively trying to find time to sit down and work through as many pages as possible because I have to know what's happening next. There are all these cliffhangers and interesting characters whose loyalties are getting tested again and again, sometimes with different outcomes. And beyond just the war, there is an aspect to this story that is very much about Kate kind of transitioning from her Quaker upbringing to becoming more worldly, not just in terms of wearing fancy clothes and socializing in Philadelphia, but also really engaging with her sexuality and learning more about it. And this happens both in Kate's relationship with Tremaine, kind of the primary romance, but even more so actually with his cousin and her fiance, who's kind of this more rakish figure whose morality is a little bit less existent, but who serves as an important counterpoint to Kate's own inner turmoil. I found this part of the story really interesting, but I felt like it was weakened by the frequent time jumps that take place in this book. And I understand why there are these time jumps. This is a book that covers a long period of time, really kind of almost from the beginning of the war towards the end. And if you take talk about like everything that's happened to these characters over that long period of time, you're gonna end up with a huge behemoth of a book. However, I think those shifts kind of shortchange some of the character development and the relationships, making Kate and Tremaine's relationship seem borderline insta-lovey, and especially making her spy career feel very randomly strung together. The biggest time jump I had an issue with was actually probably one of the first ones, so towards the beginning of the book, and this is right after Kate and Tremaine first part, and when he's left in this kind of disgrace. We go from her being this impulsive but still believing Quaker woman to jumping several months later, where she is now completely made over as a belle of the ball figure and is like the spy and doing all this like cool stuff apparently. But it's like this weirdly abrupt transition that to me becomes even more frustrating, because everyone around her keeps talking about how she is this great spy, except because we never like follow her learning how to really become a spy, or how she actually goes through the process of becoming this new like deceptive character. I'm not really sure what it is that makes her so good. Is it a natural talent? Something she's learned? There are a few references to her ciphers being really good in the letters that she sends to like relay information, but that's kind of really all I remember about that. This is also one of those books where it seems like everyone is in love with the heroine. Like everyone she meets falls in love with her super quickly. And there are books where that works better than others. This one for me was a little more borderline, maybe less terrible than some other ones. At the very least, it seemed like everyone loved her for a reason, which is she's good at what she does, I guess. Except, again, it was never completely clear to me what made her so good at what she does, except that fictional Hamilton apparently had a hard-on for her ciphers. So I don't know that it was necessarily my favorite part of the story. These parts of the book were frustrating, but they didn't really detract too much from my overall enjoyment. The romance was still really beautifully done, the backdrop of the war was super vivid, and the stakes are clearly held high throughout the story. People are killed on both sides, and you're never really sure who's next, and it feels like really your favorite character could be the one who's gonna go. Unless your favorite character is Hamilton, in which case, you know you're safe. I will definitely be checking out more books from this series, which includes, I think the next book is actually a book about pirates during the Revolutionary War, actually a female pirate, so I am super excited about that. So if you have recommendations for more books about the American Revolutionary War, either nonfiction, fiction, romance, anything, please let me know, because I don't know how long this obsession thing is gonna last for, but while I'm in the middle of it, I will be getting my hands on as much as I can. So yeah, bye.